Thanks for coming to my weird ass ramblings. And thanks for inviting me. So, I'm gonna do like 2 readings. Is that okay? Because that's what I'm doing. But so I am not a designer. I'm a writer and futurist, I guess, if I have to use those labels. But what I'm talking about is defining a problem space that what you're talking about is solving. So there's a good dovetailing there. So I will now read my speech. Thank you. So 2 years ago, it finally dawned on me that we would never solve climate change in time. That the operative question was now, what would the world be like after it? I stopped paying passing attention to these issues and started giving it my complete attention. And you think that had hardened me to the emotional impacts around this? I mean, I know I did, but when that IPCC report dropped last year, I was gripped by despair. It was bleak. Can you go to the next slide? So I'm just gonna add some comments. So does everyone know what this is? Does anyone? This guy does. Thank you. So this is
Hot House Earth.
the Hot House Earth paper, the 3rd most downloaded paper last year. So we'll get to that. So what I hope to do is persuade you and me that as terrible as things are, and they're getting worse daily, I mean, they are, there is still hope for the world. My favorite phrase is, all hope lies in doom. That's a parenthetical statement. Largely by drawing on what's known as the Hot House Earth paper, and why that's the best news I've heard all year. So, good news everybody! The world as we know it has been broken. Like Humpty Dumpty, it can't be put back together again. So, we're there, or we're there, and those are the 2 paths. But we can fashion something new from the pieces. Because we're already effectively living on an alien Earth. Wherever we are now. I need a laser pointer. Never before have human beings breathed an atmosphere with so much CO2 in it. Never before have mosquito larvae carried microplastics from the oceans into the food web of land animals. Never before have whales died from pollutants we banned decades ago that accumulated in the oceanic trenches at the bottom of the world. To understand how we came to be living on the alien Earth, we need to properly imagine climate change and its impact on the planet. We need to trick ourselves into thinking beyond human timescales, beyond human design. To properly imagine climate change, this is where I get fun. Think of an asteroid crashing into the Earth for 100 years, for 1,000 years, causing megafires and tsunamis, obliterating cities, because that's what's coming. To properly imagine climate change, think of zombies. Well, not zombies. The dead rising to destroy the world, because that's basically what historical carbon is, the cumulative effect of all that lived before us and us too, wrecking the planet. To properly imagine climate change, think of an alien invasion that lasts 10,000 years, 12,000 years, and the plot twist is that the alien invaders are us. The most successful invasive species on the planet. Now we can imagine ourselves rallying together to stop an asteroid. You've seen those movies, right? Fighting up zombie hordes. I mean, we're all training for that, right? We can imagine ourselves coming together. Did you see that video of the guy with the sword on the treadmill? Anyone? Yeah? Thank you. He's training. We can imagine ourselves...
What was the video of the guy on the treadmill?
It was incredible. This dude at the gym, and he's doing like all these different workouts. He's doing sit-ups with a sword. He's on the treadmill with a sword. It's like incredible. We'll find it later for you. We can imagine ourselves coming together as a planet to stop an alien invasion. But faced with the very real threat that is climate change, the reaction still seems to be business as usual. Now, thankfully, I wrote this last year, and now we've got Extinction Rebellion, climate change, the Sunrise Movement. There's momentum building largely around this because people are just freaking out. The Hot House Earth paper is exciting because it shows us there is a fate other than planetary annihilation waiting for us if we can just get our shit together. It's a call to action, a desperate cry for humanity to become planetary stewards, guiding the world back to health and stability. So there's path A and path B, and we want this one. As I can never pronounce the name. Christiania Figueres, the driving force behind the Paris Agreement, put it. Do you want the Great Barrier Reef Or do you want the largest aquatic cemetery in the world? Anyone? Which one? To which I'll add, do you want platypuses on Burke Street, or do you want Melbourne destroyed by tropical storms? Do you want Antarctic ice sheets propped up by Eiffel Tower-sized supports? Or do you want 30 to 50 million Bangladeshis becoming climate refugees? Propping up the ice sheets, or even better, building a wall, the only wall we want to build, to stop them melting, are examples of some of the best proposals to specifically mitigate the effects of climate change. The most agreed upon mechanism for restabilizing the Earth, however, is ecological restoration, or gardening the alien Earth to meet a changing climate, and that's where biodesign comes in. But before we can even begin to take the fate of the alien Earth into our hands, there are more than a few obstacles to overcome, and that's if we manage to get our shit together. The path to a restabilized Earth, an alien Earth where all surviving life can thrive, is, in my opinion, the most exciting adventure we could ever embark on. You don't have to tie your dreams of terraforming a planet to someday hitching a ride with Elon Musk to Mars. The real challenge lies in the terra firma, in the here and now. Because the path we're on right now leads to the nightmare future of a hothouse Earth, of complete ecological collapse and near-human extinction, of bearing witness to a planetary death spiral, if we're so lucky, or cursed. Before we even begin to correct this course, we have to recognize, this is where I get political, the end of the world has bipartisan support. Even if Hillary had won, hurricanes would still threaten the coasts of Portugal and Ireland. Even if Bernie had won, the Arctic would still be on fire. But of course, spoiler alert, Trump won. And he and his allies, Brazil, right? Anyone? Brazil? Have made clear with their words and deeds that the only future they can imagine is the one where they alone inhabit the hothouse Earth. So far, and this is why I should have updated this, it's alright. So far there is no real party or force rising to challenge this, and that's what the Extinction Rebellion's about, for those who know what that is. And that makes me one sad, environmentally aware science fiction fan who has for decades wanted to believe that we'd somehow come to our senses in time. We didn't get the green police that David Brin wrote about in his book Earth. Wildlife trafficking, deforestation, and other despicable acts haven't become the targets of a super-empowered planetary police force. We sure as fuck didn't get a world split into two factions competing to solve global warming that Bruce Sterling wrote about in the Caryatides. Sorry. There is no coalition of eco-socialist nations in a cold war with bright green capitalism. Yet, hopefully. Nope, we got what Warren Ellis wrote about in Doom 2099, which is way too prophetic a comic. A world being looted by plutocrats bent on bailing to Mars. But the course to that future, the hothouse Earth, is not locked in. There is still time to change direction, to build these kinds of institutions, to take action, and having a vision of what lies at the end, a restabilized Earth we can be proud of building together, helps us to find the necessary courage, the impetus to act, to choose hope instead of being paralyzed by despair. So in conclusion, I ask you, which version of the hothouse Earth do you want to live on? Because its fate is in all our hands. I hope you'll join me in seeking to become planetary stewards. That's my first part. And then I was going to have some comments, but what was the next slide? Real quick. There we go. Anyone recognize this? It's from a terrible Nick Cage movie. No? Humanity Bureau? Anyone? No? That's fine. So New Eden is so I wrote this short story, which is basically that's the pitch, and this is the, what happens if we don't do anything sort of scenario. And I'm gonna skip over, it's a survival horror. It's coming out in Creeper magazine whenever they publish it. So you guys are the first to actually hear it. The horror bits, has anyone heard the term solastalgia?
Except the nostalgia for a past you can't return to.
It's close to that. What?
No, that's called solastalgia.
Yeah, solastalgia is, to quote Bruce Sterling, a form of post-disaster shock that, oh my god, that, here is, sorry. The anguish of evident environmental decline. So that's something I've been feeling for a long time. That's what I'm sort of writing about in the first, in my pitch, that despair. But what I missed the first time I heard the speech is when he talks about, he says in the speech, I think solastalgia has a lot of hairline cracks in our society already that manifest themselves in things like mass shootings and martyr bombings, which is really an interesting take, that all these like vehicular murders and mass shootings and everything are sort of an unconscious reaction to not being able to do anything about what's happening, right? There's a writer called, or a theorist called Stephanie Wakefield, and she wrote this great essay about the Anthropocene back loop, and it talks about how once like we've got the election coming up, right? Labour and Liberal, you vote for them and nothing's going to change, right? Like, there's a reason all these far-right parties are getting popular. Because people are looking for an answer that's not in the mainstream. So, where's a good place to start? I'm just going to give you the info dumps at the end, basically. So basically, my characters, and I wrote this in the second person, which is the worst thing to do if you're writing fiction, and I started with a character waking up, which is the worst thing to do in fiction, and I got away with it, hopefully. I mean, it's been published, so these, basically all these characters, there's you, because I wanted to situate you within the horror, right? So that it's a template that you just can't avoid. They've survived, they've woken up, everyone's gone mad on this generation ship, there's corpses everywhere, blah, 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 blah. And that's basically a metaphor for what's the breakdown of the world that we're seeing right now. And then they find a happy bit of news at the end. And I will just read from this random place. So they found this report, right? And it's basically a metaphor for the hothouse Earth. Can you skip back to this slide? I don't know. They found this thing and they've gone, actually, yeah, do go back, sorry. So I've used in this short story, everyone's heard I always think it's Buckminster Fuller, but it was Marshall McLuhan. He said, there are no passengers on page spaceship Earth, we are all crew. Right? So the generation ship is a metaphor for Earth, and it's two paths. And everyone's gone mad because they only see the hothouse future, and no one thinks that they can actually change course, right? And so they've just gone on a rampage and killed each other and stuff. So, where was I going to start? Okay, I'm just going to read now. My short story. A detailed star map shows the Earth's true course. Earth, the origin point. Can you skip forward again? New Eden, the promised verdant paradise world, nowhere to be seen. In its place, the nightmare world the ship was truly bound for, that no one had even bothered to name, the revelation of which everyone, almost everyone, had lost their minds over. And off to one side, right on the edge of the screen, the words, Alien Earth. The child you'd rescued. She's Newt from Alien. From Newt, yeah, Aliens, sorry. The child you'd rescued tugs in your jumpsuit and points excitedly. For the first time, you don't have to force a smile in return. Someone starts reading the section of the report that had brought you all together to this place. The world we've labelled Alien Earth is much stranger than the fabled New Eden, but far more desirable than the future we now find ourselves locked into. Adapting to life on this world will be an enormous but ultimately achievable undertaking. It is a task far more complex than simply transplanting Earth's culture to an unspoiled world. Our current ideas of colonization must be challenged in order to settle there successfully. We must critically examine both the technologies we plan to deploy and the mindset with which we do so in order to not just survive in the short term, but thrive in the long term. Its climate is stable and its biosphere is healthy, but both are radically different to the imagined sister world of our home planet we thought our destination. Its plants and animals resemble Earth's only in that they appear to have been assembled from pieces of them, something akin to the creatures of mythology like the griffin, part eagle, part lion, and so on. The composition of its atmosphere is just breathable enough for baseline humans, but some minor targeted genetic tweaking. We're gonna have a conversation later. To facilitate successive generations, adaptation to it is recommended. Exploring a gradual transition to emulating its atmosphere on at least one level of the ship is also advised as a step towards that. It appears likely that the lifeless moons of the alien Earth will be terraformed into planetary arcs to preserve what remains of Earth's flora and fauna. These could double as experimental staging grounds for testing possible forms that a non-invasive integration with a native habitat could take. Beyond all else, the primary obstacle is convincing this administration, powers that be, to change direction and inform the crew that although our planned destination is not just inhospitable, but absolutely inhabitable, there is a viable, albeit far more challenging, alternative. It is estimated that given current conditions, it will take 12 years of dedicated effort to prepare the ship. We have 12 years to act, yeah. And its inhabitants to merge with this new world. It is only attainable with the administration's full support and leadership. Everyone knows who Greta Thunberg is, 15-year-old. That's what leadership looks like right now, right? This 16-year-old. It's incredible. Anyway. Put frankly, this is the last hope we have for the survival of the human race and its client species. Continuing along our current course to a nightmare world of runaway climate chaos is the very definition of they stop. That was all you needed to hear. It's about choosing courage over despair, someone says. Nobody could argue with that. You have a plan now, a compelling vision for the future. It is time to get to work. The fate of humanity is in your blood-stained hands, in the hands of the survivors, the ones whose minds hadn't snapped at the news that New Eden was a lie, and hadn't been killed by those who had. You've been baptized in blood. A new life awaits you on alien Earth. How am I going for time? Okay, ready.
2 minutes.
Sorry.
3 minutes. 7:16.
Did you say 2?
7:16.
I don't understand.
The time is 7:16.
Do you want me to keep reading? Alright. Now I'm into a bedtime story. So basically, in terms of the story, you wake up in horror and it ends in peace. And that's my version. This guy's probably heard it, you know everything. Hope Punk? Hope Punk? Anyone?
Yeah, I've heard the term.
Yeah. It's supposed to be Supergirl, but to me it's anything that ends hopefully. My version of Hope Punk is a survival horror. Because it's about survivors, right? And we're in a shitty fucking world. So, this is the latest bit that I've actually only just written. You return from inspecting the weapons lockers and installing surveillance cameras outside the barricaded lower decks to find the quarters you chose together with your girlfriend and the rescued girl cleared out. Your bags piled neatly by the door. So this is what it took for us to finally move in together, you joke. Your girlfriend gently admonishes you. I've just gotten to sleep. I'm awake, comes a bright and cheery voice, no trace of tiredness in it. Can you tell me a story? This is our lives now, your girlfriend says, looking at you, then turns to the child that was clearly fast asleep minutes ago with a smile. Okay, little one, I've got just the thing. Once upon a time, 80,000 years ago, give or take, the first peoples arrived in their boats on the shores of a strange new land. It was stocked full of strange, big, beautiful creatures and bizarre plants that they'd never seen before, that they'd never even heard of before. None of the stories they told each other, of the homeland they left generations ago, of the adventures their people had had during their travels, none of them told them of such gigantic lizards, let alone the weird hopping things that stored their babies in their built-in front pocket. Or the vast herds of slow-wandering, thick-hided creatures, taller than their spears, that migrated up and down the land each year. They loved this strange new land and told each other new stories about it. For tens of thousands of years, they lived with these strange, wonderful beasts, and when it came time for them to leave the earth and journey into the heavens, the first peoples, who'd learned so much from them, took over as stewards of the land. They remembered their stories and used them to tell each other how to best take care of their new homeland. Until one day, new people arrived on their shores in their strange new boats. The first peoples welcomed the newcomers and tried to show them how to live with the land, but the newcomers were infected with a disease. The story they told each other was that this land was theirs now, and the first peoples weren't a people at all. The newcomers tried to make this strange new land just like their homeland. They didn't make new stories and use the names of their homeland for the places that were new to them. This was the beginning of the end. Not just for this beautiful strange land, but the entire world. The disease the newcomers brought with them got worse and worse, infecting almost everyone, destroying not just their land, but the seas and the sky too, until the earth was on the edge of death. So one day, the last peoples of the world, the ones that hadn't been infected by the that hadn't been affected by the disease and all the damage it did, banded together to build a great big new boat. A boat big enough, strong enough, vast enough to let them all leave the earth and follow the vanished beasts of the world into the heavens, to seek out a new homeworld. These people told themselves new stories on their travels. They looked forward to the strange new world they were journeying to the marvelous beasts they would meet and the stories they would learn from them. They looked forward to learning how to live with the strange new world, and if the time ever came that the magnificent beasts of that world too journeyed into the heavens, they would take stewardship of the world and protect it from disease. Your girlfriend stops her story there. You look at the rescue child. She is sleeping contently, a smile upon her face. Peace. That's the end of my story. Yeah. So, yeah, that's my metaphor for. Can anyone guess what it was about? Anyone? Eula? Anyone? No one?
Strange history.
Nailed it. It's been reading Dark Emu, which is full on, but what the first peoples arrived to was a completely foreign continent, right? Completely alien, and that's kind of what we're heading towards. So that's my metaphor. So maybe we want to emulate that rather than colonialism and apply our thinking towards getting towards that. That's our destination. And is everyone, you're all designers? Because these are the problems you need to solve. I might just end there. Is that okay?